In this video we're going to make a database and then a table, and then we'll query the table with a simple SQL statement. So let's do this. Crank up the Management Studio here. Let's connect to a server, so click that icon, choose your server, click connect. Alright, so expand the one that says databases. As you can see, the only ones by default are the system databases. Leave those. Instead, right click and then choose new database. Give it some name such as my DBase. Alright, and now notice that there are two files. There's a primary file and then there's a log file, and these are the way they grow. So the primary one grows by 1 megabyte and the other one grows by 10%. Keep in mind for the log file, because it's recording events all the time, keep in mind that growing 10% means if you're at 100 and you're growing by 10%, you grow by 110. If you're at 110 and you grow by 10% of that, you're going to grow by more than 10. In other words, as something increases in size, each 10% increases in size. So you'll be adding things ever more quickly. Just keep that in mind in terms of server space. And then these are our locations here on the disk. And of course there are other things here like options, file groups, and so on. For our purposes, you can leave these set to default. Click OK. Let it create the construct of the database. Now when you expand my database here, as you can see, it's not one table or one file, it's a whole collection of objects or of related functionality. So diagrams, tables, views, synonyms, programmability, brokers, storage, security, all kinds of things here. We'll begin simply enough by looking at tables. So if we expand the tables node, there's system and file tables. So right click the tables here and make a new table like this. The columns, now what is a table? Think of an Excel file. Okay, so that's what this is. Alright, so first we're going to enter the column name here, so give it a name ID. For the data type, choose int for integer. And when you work with SQL Server, depending on how intense, the computer is being used, some of the stuff can be quite slow and time consuming. Okay, we'll do things that int, so as you type it gives you what you need. Now where it says allow nulls, you want to check this off rather than on. And to allow a null means you can leave that column cell, you can leave that cell empty. It doesn't mean that there's a 0 inside it, it means simply that it's empty. That's it, there's no information provided. Alright, now right click this one again here and set it to be the primary key. So this will be used to identify each record. Okay? Now, record is essentially a complete piece of information that's horizontal. We'll see in a little more what exactly that is, how that is represented when you look at it visually. Okay. Now say we have a new column called name, call it variable character, set that equal to 50 in size, and this one probably should not be null also, and then maybe add another column called title, set that equal to variable character 50. Some people could be have long names and be the vice president of sales for company X in the northwestern region of United States. You see, I mean they can be very long. So, and however potentially it could be null, so we'll leave that set to allow nulls. Okay, there it is. So save all of this. You can specify the table. We'll just leave it as table 1. Click OK. Now notice when you work with these column definitions, on the bottom appear the properties for each column, and so in other words, each column can be further refined. You can choose this one, and it gives you a lot of different information that will apply to that column. So same here and same here. And so remember, a column is essentially an object, and objects are defined by the properties that they possess. So setting the properties of the object defines the object, so to speak. Just as imagine yourself. Your eyes are a certain color, your hair is a certain color, your certain height and weight and all that. Those are the characteristics that define you. Same principle applies here. A column is an object, and it's got properties that define it. Alright, so that's good. Now basically we can X this off the screen. And I click new query. However, we need to add some information, right? Some actual data. So if you will right click and choose refresh, it shows the table now. So if you expand this node, it says columns. And it tells you, see now there's a little golden key and it says PK for primary key. And the type is integer and no values are allowed, and this is repeated, right? These are like a little column icons. Whereas for the table, it's a bigger icon that indicates multiple columns. You see? So the icons mean something. Alright, so that's that. That's that. Now, if you will right click, you see it says table. Like that. So we don't need that. That's just going to make a new table. Right click and then design. So this will allow us to change our design, but we've done that already, so we're happy. Next we have select top 1000 rows. If you hit that, it generates code for us. This is an SQL query. Okay? And it says select top 1000, ID is a column, name is a column, and title is a column from mydbase.dbo.table. If you look at the structure here, mydbase.dbo.table, that simply refers to the hierarchical structure here. You see, mydbase contains an object called dbo.table1. You see? All right. So let's do this. Right click, and what if we select edit top 200 rows? Right, now let's enter some information. For the ID, put a 1. Right, for the name, say put John, and say his title will be president. Right, for second, and then say put Mary, and her title will be vice president, like this. Okay, and then maybe put in a 3, and then put Tom, and put in title programmer, like this. Okay? Alright. Let's save it all. Now here, let's click this off now. Click this off. Leave the blank query window open. And now type essentially this. Type use. And this is called IntelliSense. When you start typing, the system is designed to give you suggestions. So in our case, we can type mydbase, like that. And then you can type select. Put a star, and then from, and then DBO, dot, and then table 1. This will select all of the columns from all the information from our table. Okay, and the table is called table 1. So now if you highlight this and you can parse it, it says completed successfully, awesome. You can even execute it. And the return in this case, as you can see, is ID, name, title, and you've got the IDs, the names, and the titles like that, you see? So this has selected all of the columns. On the other hand, if I type ID, comma, and then name, notice when you type, even the columns are objects, and it tells you, suggests it. So you can select it from IntelliSense. That's what that is called, that feature. Alright, and if you execute this, it will return only the ID and the name, like that. Okay, so these are the columns to be returned, and this is the table from which these columns are to be drawn. This is the name of the DBase object. If you want to change the font, you can from Tools, Options, Fonts and Colors under Environment. You see you can change the font size. I chose it to be 16 so you can see it clearly in the screen. You can set it, to whatever you want. And you can also do it by printer. You see this is how it should look when it's printed. See that? Or for the text editor and so on. So you can, this is highly customizable. Cancel that. Okay, one more feature is if you hit debug. Debug is a powerful feature because it allows you to step through queries one line at a time. So if you cover your mouse over the yellow, it says this is the next statement that will be executed. So this has not yet been executed. It will be executed. Alright, and then if you hit this where it says step into, that means this line, select ID, comma, name from dbo.table1 is about to be executed. And on the bottom it says debugging query, and this is a super helpful feature when you have complex queries. because you can execute them line by line with find control. All right, and then there you go. So it executes, everything is working as expected. If you don't want your results here, you can get them sent to different data. So you can results to grid, results to text, you see? So if you run this, you see now it looks different here. It's not a grid, not very pretty, but some people like that. There's even this option that says results to files. So if you run it, it'll open a save file dialog, and then you can save it, you see? There you go. So most people will do this. And run that, execute that code, and you're back with the grid. And then of course it displays the messages where it says 3 rows affected. Remember, they're not really affected. All you're doing is displaying them. You're not changing them or anything. Alright, so that's it for this one. Please be sure that you can reproduce these steps. I will be printing these results here. These are little queries and putting them in a sidebar. So you have trouble reading them here, you can read them in a sidebar. Alright, that is it. Thank you very much, and I will see you in another video.